On today's episode of the Pep Talk podcast, we are continuing our challenge to you to elevate the rest of 2023 and don't wait until 2024 because why would you? Doesn't make sense. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. And I have a great guest who is going to lay down some incredible acronyms for what PEP actually stands for that can really help you make the changes that you need to make right now. But first, I have a question for you. Have you had your dose of PEP today? No? Got you. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Pep Talk podcast. This is season 2, episode 16. 16. I can't believe we're 16 episodes in, but then again, I can't believe it because I'm having such a great time coming to you every Monday, bringing you some pep to get your week started. And today is no different. This episode is going to be special for me. Because I'm having an opportunity to interview someone that I have looked up to since he was my psychology teacher in high school. And so we've reconnected, and we're going to have a conversation today that will help anybody from the boardroom to the classroom to any other type of room that you might find yourself in. This conversation is going to be powerful, and it can be pivotal if you really listen and take into yourself, internalize what's being said over the course of it. Now, y'all know the purpose of this podcast is to cheer you on and to coach you up. We want to be your biggest cheerleader, but we also want to help you to elevate because everybody needs a coach. And so that is the purpose of this conversation that we are having today. I am going to be interviewing my old psychology teacher, Mr. Tommy Morris, and he's going to be bringing to you some gems and some jewels and some sapphires and some pearls. So y'all get ready, get your pen and paper ready, get your notes app ready, because when I come back, we're jumping right into this conversation with Mr. Tommy Morris, where we talk about all things concerning PEP and how it pertains to you. So we'll be right back. All right, Pep Squad. We are back, episode 16. 16 episodes in season 2 of the Pep Talk podcast. And the guest that I have for you today, I need to say a couple of things about him before I introduce him. So the first time I heard this man speak, I was at my sister's college graduation. And this guy got walked up to the podium, and from the very first words that he spoke, it was something about a clock. He was counting down on the clock. And I remember my mouth dropped and I was like, who is this dude? Like, who is he? Because like I have never heard a speech that dynamic that I was actually sitting in my life. And my first thought was, wow, I want to do what he does. Like I want to be able to speak like that. Lo and behold, I go into my junior year of high school, psychology class. This same gentleman is in the class as our teacher. And y'all, I promise, high school psychology to this day was one of my favorite educational experiences that I have ever had. I learned about object permanence and self-fulfilling prophecy, and those are two concepts that have stuck with me
Oh,
for
wow.
years thereafter. So when we connected on Instagram, I knew I had to have him on the podcast, not just because of the dynamic human being that he is, but also to honor him because for years, a lot of the things that I've tried to do and things that I've patterned myself by are things that I gleaned from him just in that one school year that we had together, my junior year of high school. So, without further ado, Pep Squad, I would like to introduce you to one of my heroes, Mr. Tommy Morris. Mr. Morris, welcome to the Pep Talk podcast, man. How you doing?
Good afternoon, man. I am amazing, and I'm trying to keep it together over here to hear you as a student talk about the impact that I had unknowingly. And I didn't. I think you may have shared with me that you heard me speak, but I had forgotten that. So that is even more moving that that moment touched you in a way that I hope whenever I speak it touches people. So, like I said, I'm trying to not get choked up over here. but I really do appreciate um, God for the opportunity to pour into students like you and others that year, and for all of the years afterwards throughout my career now in higher education for almost 20 years. Um, I am honored to be here with you. I salute you in what you're doing. And as I said to you earlier, I am so excited to see you doing your thing, having an impact, making a difference in the world, because ultimately that's what our life and living is about. You know, our grandmamas, probably yours and mine, used to sing a song, if I can help somebody
Yes,
as I pass
absolutely.
along, then my living
Will not be in
is not
vain.
in vain.
Yeah.
So I think some of those simple truths are really the key to living a life of value, to living a life of impact. And so I'm excited to be with you today, ready to get into this conversation and see where it goes.
Awesome. Well, before we get in there first, I want to give you an opportunity to tell the Pep Squad kind of what you do and who you are. So, just give us a quick hit. Who is Mr. Tommy Morris?
Well, Mr. Tommy Morris is a little Mississippi boy who came from a single parent home, uh, a mother who loved him and taught him that he could do anything if he set his mind to it. I went on to graduate from Tougaloo College with a bachelor's in psychology, minor in biology. Um, and then after my teaching experience with the amazing students there at Jim Hill High School, shout out Jackson,
Yeah,
Mississippi,
let's go.
Jim Hill High School, the IB program, went into a master's program for higher education, student personnel development. And so, like they say, the rest is history.
Hmm.
After finishing that graduate program, went on to really a life in student affairs. And I haven't looked back. I have enjoyed the areas of service from residential life and judicial affairs to financial aid to really finding my niche in student leadership and involvement, student engagement, where I have led programming for campuses such as Tougaloo College, Jackson State University, and most recently Baton Rouge Community College. Um, I am a father of two amazing sons, Malachi, who is a sophomore at Jackson State University, and Mikhail, who's a senior currently at Murrah High School. Um, I have also been in ministry since about the age of 17. So I've been a youth minister and associate pastor and also a senior pastor there in Jackson, Mississippi for roughly 16 years. I was in senior leadership and then transitioned into itinerant ministry, which is me traveling and preaching wherever invited. Uh, Currently, I am pursuing full time my passion for leadership development through the Grace Firm. GRACE stands for Getting Results, Adaptive, Constructive, and Effective. Adaptive, managing change; constructive, building human capital; and effective, maximizing impact.
Okay,
So through that work, I hope to help individuals and or organizations kind of ace life, the ace of the grace
love it.
is
I
kind
love
of
that.
the key uh, in terms of services and skills that I offer to whatever groups. I've done a lot of work with other colleges and universities, from Texas College to Wiley University to Miles College. And of course, I've spoken and preached um, throughout the United States and in both Guyana, South America, and Kenya, Africa as well.
Okay,
So that's kind of what I've been doing. That's kind of what I have been doing, and just trying to make a difference, trying to understand who I am in the world, and helping others find their place in the world as well.
love it, love it, love it. Okay, so The key idea of this podcast is to cheer people on and to coach them up. So we want to be the biggest cheerleader, but we also want to add that coaching aspect because I believe that everybody needs a cheerleader to believe in them and hype them up, but everybody also needs a coach to help them find the way to navigate what that elevation looks like. And so
Absolutely.
the work that you're doing, the leadership development piece, helping people get clarity on that, I think it's key. Like that, those are the things that are in my heart. And so as we're closing out 2023, my challenge to our listeners is don't wait until January 1st of 2024 to get started. Start now because it's easier to reach full speed while you're already running than to reach full speed from a dead stop. And for many
Right.
of us, that dead stop is January 1st. I'm going to start the diet. I'm going to pursue the passion. I'm going to write the book. And I'm like, no, like we're not doing that. We're going to start now. So as well, okay, first question. How would you define, in your opinion, how would you define what a leader is?
Um, this is always an interesting question. One of my favorite mentors, and I'm also a certified John Maxwell speaker and facilitator. But John Maxwell says leadership is influence,
Hmm.
nothing more, nothing
Nothing
less.
less.
And I have kind of broadened that definition to say leadership is applied influence. We're all leaders, but we don't all accept our leadership, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yes.
Everyone is a leader because we all have influence, whether that's on a macro or micro scale. If it's just the person next to you, whether that's a classmate or a sibling, when you begin to influence that individual, you have become a leader. Once your influence is impacting, moving, persuading, pursuing other people, that's leadership,
Right.
influence, nothing more. And so I define leadership as applied influence, that to really practice the art of leadership, you have to apply yourself, you have to apply your influence. Um, because you're doing it whether you recognize it or not. I
Right.
always share this beautiful story of my two sons when they were babies. The oldest was maybe 6 or 7. They're 3 years apart. And so the baby boy had to be maybe 3 or 4. And Malachi is marching through the house with his little drum, one of those tremendous noisemakers that parents buy for little boys for Christmas. And so he's marching through the house, beating his drum. And I noticed that Mikhail, the baby boy, who has no drum, yet is marching right in step behind him, mimicking his big brother, playing his imaginary drum. And in that moment, I stopped Malachi. I turned him around and I said, "Hey, you see your little brother watching you. You see your little brother trying to imitate and be like you." I said, "Today, you become a leader."
Hmm.
Because I wanted him to know that the moment you start influencing other individuals, other human beings, you have activated your leadership. You have become actively someone who's leading another human being, another life, another energy force. So that's how I would define leadership. It is applied influence, and it doesn't matter where we are in life or in the world, we all have the ability to assert and activate our influence.
Right. Right. Okay. So leadership is applied influence. And I also love that definition by John Maxwell as well. But I like that applied aspect to it. Why do you think so many people are either one, loath to accept a leadership mantle, or um, or two, unwilling to apply that into any given situation. Because I can remember there, from the time that I was young, people have always looked at me and said, Jay, you're a leader. You may not see it yet, you may not accept it yet, but you're a leader. And they were right. I didn't see it. I didn't accept it. It took me years, probably decades, before I would look at someone and say, yes, I am a leader. But why do you think so many people have issues accessing that portion of themselves?
Uh, I think the number one reason is fear. I think we have been unfair to leadership oftentimes in the world
Hmm.
because we try to make superheroes out of leaders, and they are very much the opposite. They are human beings just like you and me who are willing to try to use their influence for the greater good and for the betterment of the world around them. That's
Hmm.
it. They don't have any superpowers. They aren't any better than you or me. Um, God didn't give them some unique ability that only they have in the sense of leadership. Now we all do bring unique gifts as individuals. We bring our unique gifts and our unique selves to the leadership experience, but that influence we all have. And so I think the biggest reason is fear because so much pressure is put on leaders. Um, and again, rather than allowing them to have the influence and make the difference that they can make and move on, we like to put them on pedestals and create this super idyllic, almost untenable kind of expectation on them.
Yeah.
Um, there's only one savior of the world, and
Yeah.
he came and he died and he redeemed us. But the rest of us who choose to accept the mantle of leadership are really just trying to bring the best of who we are to the world around us. And so I think if I could say anything to anyone, young or old, who is fearful of, as you said, accepting that leadership mantle, I would say to them, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the best in your mind or in your own eyes.
Hmm.
All you have to do is be willing to take the gifts and the talents that you have and use them to serve others. And if you do that, you are being a leader and can be a person of great impact. So that's probably, in my opinion, the number one reason people shy away from leadership is the fear of unrealistic expectations that they somehow will have to be this perfect person because we love to make a role model out of somebody.
Right.
um, and I even personally remember a time, particularly in like my teenage and young adult life, where I kind of felt a kind of rebellion from that that pressure because I grew up. I was the good boy or the good kid, and so if my cousins or people were acting out, everybody was, you ought to be more like Tommy, or or if at school the teacher would, if some student was cutting up, all of a sudden I became the example. Do you see how Tommy's doing his work and being quiet? And it's like, no, don't do that. Wait. Don't put all that pressure over here on me. I'm just trying to be me and trying to do the best I can. I'm not trying to be everybody's model or the mold by which other people, form themselves. So I think that's the biggest hesitation and fear for many people is that the expectation of leadership is unrealistic and too high for them. And so what I try to do is make leadership more palatable, make it more humanistic, that it is just you and I giving the best of ourselves to the others around us.
Okay. All right. So one thing that I want to to bring out on what you just said that I think is so important. Because in some cases, I was a lot like you, seen as the good kid, always on
Right.
task. Um, Parents, teachers, supervisors, bosses, managers, when you have those employees who you look at and you see that they are the example, that doesn't mean that you have to make them the example to pit them against someone else
Right.
unwillingly.
Right.
Um, and I think I've seen it in positions that I've worked in. You endure it when you're in school and in different situations, and it creates unease for the person who's being put up on the pedestal, but it also creates animosity for the people who are being compared against somebody else's standard. And if we're going to help people access the leadership within all of us, rather than comparing them to the standard of someone else,
Yes.
we have to help them develop and uphold a standard for themselves.
Right. It's really about helping them find the best in themselves,
Yeah,
not comparing them to someone else or some other expectation, but what is your own personal expectation for yourself? What is it that you want from your own life? And how can I help you get there? What is it that I can offer you to uncover and help you discover the gifts within, those God given talents, those uh, uh, passions that sometimes start as a hobby in childhood? But if it is that thing that comes innately to you, and this is some of the couple of the points that I made to talk about today. And I'll tell you, I'm an acronyms guy.
yeah,
So when you said, the name of the podcast is PEP, I have tried to come up with these three ideas and points that I want to discuss as we talk about leadership development, as we talk about personal development, um, using the acronym PEP. So the first one is, the 3 points are purpose, potential, and productivity. But purpose experienced personally. That's the first PEP. Um, Purpose, for it to be impactful, must first be experienced personally. I have to discover that why for myself, within myself, not from without, because people will try to tell you who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be. I went to school initially at Tougaloo to become a pediatrician, and that's what I thought I wanted to be, because if you're smart, you're a doctor or you're a lawyer.
right,
And that's kind of what we inherited in the Cosby age,
right, absolutely.
Um, and so that was what I was pursuing. Now, mind you, I wanted to be rich, as most of us do young in life. I thought being rich was the answer to everything. So I wanted to be a doctor so I could make a lot of money. But life and this journey has helped me to understand that the wealth is not in the dollar, it's in you finding personal fulfillment and satisfaction. Um, I love to share this book with anybody that I do leadership development with. Dr. Miles Monroe, a spiritual and leadership guru out of the Bahamas,
Mhm.
he wrote a book, The Pursuit of Purpose. And I encourage anybody, I don't know where it is, Destiny Publishing, or go on Amazon, but I encourage anybody to get that book and read it. It revolutionized my life because it took me from an external um, locus of control, if you're in psychology, to an internal locus of control. And you'll remember some of that
I
from our
do.
class.
I'm
But
laughing. Yeah, because I remember.
um, but in the book, he said the purpose of a thing is in the mind of its creator. So the created can't say to the creator, "Oh, this is what you ought to," or "This is how you ought to use me," or "This is whoever created the hammer." He had an intention,
Hmm.
And so when we talk about purpose, that's the key word there, intent. What was the intent for your being here? What was the intent for your arrival out of all of the decades of time, out of all of the millennia you could have existed in? You were born in the time and space that you were. For what intent? And the only person, the only power that can truly reveal that to you is the power that created you. Now,
Right.
if you're spiritual and you believe in God, or if you tend to lean toward the universe or a higher power, whatever force that you feel like that's greater than yourself, um, that brought you into this place and time, there was an intention. Nothing is created without an intention.
Correct.
Um, and so, if the person who created the hammer, now I can take that hammer and instead of nailing nails or compounding something, I could use it as I could put it on the door, the edge of a door, and use it as a coat hanger, and put my coat on the that curved edge.
Right.
Would it have some impact? Would it have some use? Yes, but it won't be maximized
Right.
because that wasn't the intention. Um, and so when I read that, it sent me into a very personal and spiritual place where I began to pray and just ask God. I know why I feel like I've been put here because I want to be a doctor, but I began to pray and say, God, what was the reason that you brought me here? Um, and begin to pray about my purpose. And somewhere in between that freshman and sophomore year is where I changed my major after reading that book, changed it to psychology because I believe that God had called me to people in more of an educational and more of an educational way. I didn't know
Okay.
what all that would mean uh, because even when I finished Tougaloo College and ended up teaching you, that wasn't my initial plan.
Right.
But a mentor that I had at the time said, "You have done too much. You have been too incredible this throughout your collegiate career to just go sit at home." Because I said, "Well, I'm just going to take a year off," and he was like, "Oh no, you're not. You are going to continue to experience some kind of opportunity that's going to help you grow, that's going to help you discover who you are and what you're really meant to be here to do." And he said, he was a principal at the time, Dr. Earl Watkins.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
he was a strong mentor and friend at the time. And he said, "Why don't you come and teach for me?" And I said, "Teach? Oh no," because my mom had been a Head Start teacher for 30 years. And I had sworn that I would never, never be a
Same.
teacher.
Same. 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 Same.
And so, but I didn't have any other plan. So I said, you know what? What can it hurt? And needless to say, from the very first moment I stepped into the classroom and started interacting with students, I realized why I was here, why I had been put here, to have that impact and to have that opportunity to impart to young minds.
Okay. So I want to stop you there, uh,
Yes.
because there's always a cognitive dissonance, one of our
Yes.
vocabulary words,
Uh-huh.
that happens when you are trying to live or discover your purpose through what everybody else says that you should do versus discovering some measure of purpose within something that is authentic to you. So like we come from a generation and a culture where, like you said, being a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, those were like the honorable paths. So
Right.
you either going to treat people when they're sick, you're going to get them out of trouble when they cross the law, or you're going to educate them so that they don't get in trouble with the law and they know how to take care of themselves so they don't get sick.
Right.
One of those three avenues. So with all of the, and you talked about how you had this pressure to be this other you, but you finally, after reading Dr. Miles Monroe's book or whatever, you kind of came to a new sense of who you were and your purpose. Like you experienced it personally, like you said. How did you resolve that dissonance between these are the expectations that have been placed upon me versus this is what I feel like I'm called to? Because, and here's why I'm asking, there are people who are listening to this podcast who they are working jobs that they know that they need to leave, or maybe they don't need to leave the job yet,
Mm,
but they're doing it because everybody else expects them to, when they know that there's something inside of them that is just begging and pleading to come out. But when they think about, okay, I'm going to open the door and let this other part of me out, there's a immediate dissonance. Like, what if I disappoint my parents, or what if I disappoint the people who have always been in my corner, but yet I'm not being true to myself? So how do you navigate that? That's hard.
it is a hard thing, and I will tell you, it was a painful process to divorce the idea of Dr. Tommy Morris, the pediatrician that I had been so married to in my mind through high school. My aunt, Dr. Peggy Wells, who is still an amazing pediatrician in the Mississippi Delta, I spent every summer working with her and watching her and learning from her in preparation to be who and like she was. Uh, and so then when God and I began to wrestle about what's my purpose, not what, not, not the image that I wanted for myself, but more
Right.
so like I said, the intent that He had for me. Um, it was difficult. I'm not going to lie to anyone. But I think the biggest question to ask, and this is another thing that Miles Monroe said in his book, because so often when we talk about uh, our purpose, we're thinking success in terms of material possessions and wealth and position.
Right.
Um, but he said success can only truly be defined as the fulfillment of purpose. That's when you know you're truly successful. When you have done the thing you were created to do,
Mm.
because that's the place where you're going to find fulfillment. We
Right.
know of plenty of people who are rich and unhappy.
Right.
We know of plenty of powerful people who are in positions and hate their lives.
Right.
Somewhere they missed their intent, or they, like you said, know it's somewhere down in there, but they have been driven by ambition and these external things to pursue an external definition of success more so than an internal definition of success. And I think Dr. Miles Monroe had it right when he said success ultimately is the fulfillment of purpose. Because you can go through times of having a lot of money and not having money. You can go through times of being in great positions and get fired and go back to the bottom of the ladder. But if you understand your why, you know why you came to the planet. Um, I think there's a quote that says that the two greatest days in a man's life is the day that he's born and the
The day
day
he
that he
understands
knows
why.
why.
Yeah.
Right. So that's success. That's where the real success is. And so, to the person who's struggling with other people's expectation of them, I would say to them, who can you live with disappointing the most?
Mm,
Can you live with disappointing yourself, or would you rather live with disappointing yourself or disappointing these external people?
mm.
Because people will be happy for you in a life that they prescribe for you, but they don't have to live that life.
Come on.
You have to live it. And so you cannot allow that external pressure expectation to control you, because otherwise you end up unhappy. You end up unfulfilled. You may have the things, you may have the money, you may have the position, but you will still somehow go home and be hollow on the inside. Do I have as much money as I probably would have had I become a medical doctor? No. But do I have the wealth of happiness? Do I have the wealth of having the opportunity to run into a student 30 years later that says you impacted me? And I mean, that's priceless. You can't you, you, you can't articulate the value of that. Um, and so I've had that experience for the last 20 years with every set of students I've encountered. Uh, Prayerfully, hopefully, there has been a student like you that came away from that experience or from our talk or from our workshop that said, "Whoa, Mr. Morris, man, I never thought about that, and I'm finna do great things, or I'm going to be the best version of myself, not some cheap imitation of other people.
Yes.
I'm going to be the best me I can be." And at the end of the day, what more can anyone ask of you? A mom, a dad, being a parent now, I don't want my sons to be who I want them to be. I
Right.
want them to discover and understand who they believe they are called to be and to be the best version of that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, because I understood that kind of pressure as a child and from young years, it was very important for me not to put that kind of pressure on my sons. Um, I was a preacher. I don't expect them to be preachers because I'm a preacher. Now, do I think maybe one of them may have that gift or call? Yes, I do. But that's between them and God.
Right.
I haven't tried to make them do or become something, because just like God has been in control of the world for millennia, um, and just like He helped me find my way, He can help them find their way. And so the most important thing I can do is give them the self assurance, the self confidence to believe in themselves enough to know that I will find my way. Failure is a part of success. Failure is one of the markers on the road to success. Nobody gets to success without failure. So I already told them, we not gonna trip over that. You're gonna fall. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna miss it sometimes. We all do. That's a part of our human experience. But if you make up in your mind that you're not gonna stay down, that you're gonna get back up and get back at it, then there's no limit to what you can do, no limit to what you can achieve. And so I think that that's part of what you are saying, even to your audience through Pep Talk, is to say, hey, you may be challenged or fearful, but do it anyway.
That's right.
Courage is courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to do it in the face of fear.
That's right.
That's what real courage is. So you may be intimidated. Was I intimidated to walk away from the convenience and the comfort of a steady check every 2 weeks? Sure, I was. Um, but I said to myself, at some point, you got to bet on you.
Mm.
If everybody else who's ever done great things, Oprah or any other amazing Tony Robbins or Les Brown, like great speakers, like at some point they had to believe in themselves enough to take a bet on themselves, and they got out there and they just started doing it,
Yeah.
and eventually the pathway opened up.
But see, betting on yourself,
Yeah,
to me, that is as purely a sign of leadership as I can think of. Like
absolutely.
like saying, despite everything that I have going for me in this avenue that I'm currently walking on, it's not my authentic path. I'm going to step away and I'm going to bet on myself. Now, When we do that, a lot of times we expect the takeoff to be immediate, right? Like
Right.
when I started this podcast, I said, well, shoot, I'm sure I've, helped enough people over the course of my life that, you know, 100 of them are going to listen to the podcast.
Right.
But that was not the case. that, that was not the case. And so I've had to I've had to uh, understand that even though I'm betting on myself by starting this podcast, the leadership component of that is that I'm having to lead myself well. And so
Absolutely.
here's what that means for me. Whether an episode gets 5 listens or 10 listens or 15 listens or no listens, I'm still going to do every episode with excellence because that's what I expect of myself. I'm going to have the discipline to do the edits and to bring the excitement and the passion because for me, leadership doesn't start with necessarily my influence of other people. Leadership starts with my influence on my own discipline and my own pursuit of excellence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I couldn't have said it better. And the student has become the teacher. Uh, um, but yes, um, we lead ourselves before we lead anyone else, and um, with great reward comes great risk. And so I would tend to say to people, and even yourself, when you think about your podcast, the greatest joy in the production of each podcast is not necessarily how many people listen.
That's
The
facts.
greatest joy is that you did it.
Yes, that's it.
You did it. You completed it. You made a goal for yourself and you accomplished it.
That's right.
Now, who it is intended for is beyond your control. See, but this is the other lesson in leadership that I don't know that oftentimes we are taught. Our gifts are not for us.
Yes, sir.
Our gifts are for those to whom we are called. Our
Yes.
gifts are for those that are meant to be impacted by what it is that the Creator put in us. The gift is never for you. I mean, we are a very selfish generation. So, yes, we buy ourselves gifts nowadays, but the true sense of what a gift is you buying something for someone else.
Correct.
That's the true nature and meaning of a gift is that you give something to someone else. Um, and so when we understand that the gift is not for us. So if I'm called to 5 people or 50, 500 or 5 million, I'm called to the people I'm called to.
Mm.
For many years as a pastor, people would say to me once they heard me preach, "Oh my God, you should be, a pastor of a mega church. Like, why are you at this little church out in the country?" And I said, because these are the people that God called me to. See, we can many times get lost in the sauce, chasing ambition, chasing the money, the power, the fame, versus, like I said, going back to Dr. Miles Monroe's definition of success, versus finding our own personal fulfillment. I was very happy pastoring just that group of 50 people, that small congregation of loving people, of just good-hearted country folks. I didn't have all that big city politics to worry about, and the P Diddy said best, more money, more problems. So
That's right.
the bigger the church, the bigger the demons. So, but if I did not have that internal sense of what success is, that success is the fulfillment of purpose. And I knew whether I preached to 5 people on a Sunday or 500. And I have been in places where I preached to 500. The question was, did I fulfill the purpose of God with that speaking assignment? Because there are times that you will speak to people and it'll be an audience of 100 and you were sent there just for one person.
Hmm.
Your message was there to revolutionize one person's life, one person to hear what God put in your heart, and it turns their life. It
Yeah.
turns them.
Yeah.
Uh, that I mean, who cares about the other 400 that didn't go crazy about your speech? Maybe you weren't sent there for them. And so that's a part of that growth, that maturing in ourselves, that we're not looking for the external approval. We're not looking for the external pats on the back or now the clicks and the likes that our culture is so driven by now.
Yeah.
And of course, I think, we're going to see years of psychological damage that social media has done to new generations, this whole life of comparison, because that's ultimately what social media has created, is a constant barrage of us comparing ourselves to the rest of the world, their images, their lifestyles, their stories, their reels. And it's like, if you stay there, you will never find happiness. You will never be content with your life and with what God has given you if you're always comparing yourself to the next social influencer or highlight or reel that looks so amazing. And these same people could be miserable
Right.
when they turn
No,
the
that's
camera on.
come on. That's the
Uh,
truth.
and some of my friends have told me that many of these influencers are still living with their mama after they finish doing this amazing reel from a trip in Mexico. That's why they can go to Mexico, because they ain't paying no rent and they don't have no light bill to pay. And yeah, that's why they all over the world, because they taking their money to have another good time. So we have to become centered and understand that purpose is experienced personally. Find the why, find the intent that God created you, but then understand that that intent causes God to put in you some things that are innate. And that leads me to my second point: potential expressed practically.
Talk about
The
that.
PEP squad has to understand that no matter where you come from in life, you have potential. There is a set of innate gifts, innate skills, innate proclivities that help you to understand the intent, because design flows from intention.
Right.
The car has four wheels based off of the intent to increase speed. We had been on bicycles with just two wheels, but somebody understood that in order to increase speed, we needed more of these circular things, create momentum.
Right.
They understood some laws of physics and all that good stuff. And thus, the design came out of the intent. So what was innate now, what what I build innately into the car comes from the initial intent, the vision. So, and not to try to preach on the pep talk, but where there is no vision, people perish. So if you don't have a sense of vision for your life, then you don't truly understand how to tap into your potential,
Right.
because the potential is there to make the vision a reality. That's all. Potential is there to make you understand that you can achieve that thing that you see in your mind. That imagination comes from someplace very deep and innately within. So
Okay. Wait.
for me,
Let me stop you right there because I need
okay,
to I need to interject. Okay.
yes,
Because I know that there are people out there just like me that hearing all your life you have potential. You have potential. Oh, one day your potential is going to be fulfilled. Potential this, potential that. For me, potential became a four-letter word. Like
right,
for somebody to
yeah,
tell me, Justin, you have all this potential that you're not meeting, and then not tell me how to meet it, To me, it was almost like you just slapped me in the face, you just cursed me out, and everything else because I was resentful. How dare you tell me that you see something in me, but not tell me how to access it?
Right. Or help me find it.
Yeah. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I think it goes back to the acronym: potential expressed practically. You have to make potential something practical rather than spiritual or elusive. If we look at the innate gifts that we have, for instance, when I was a kid growing up and reciting the Sunday school lesson, that innate gift for speech and talking in front of people, God was already giving me an inclination. He was already beginning to give me a little point sign, a little pointing sign to the road down the road about what it is that you were created for, because that thing that you're meant to do will have the corresponding gifts, the corresponding skills. Like, we know people who never took a singing lesson, but they just started sounding like an angel.
Right.
That's a sign that this innate gift is a part of your why. The potential is how, but it corresponds to your why. You only have a how because the why exists.
Mm.
So to get
Oh, that's
from
good.
So to get from why to how, you say, okay, what is it that I possess already? What is it? Simple questions. What do I already like to do? With no prodding, with no incentivizing. What is that thing that I like to do? There are kids right now somewhere in the world who love drawing.
Mhm.
That's not a coincidence.
Correct.
This is a part of God. This is the universe revealing to you those things that are innate, the potential that you have. Those skills are being uncovered because God is trying to show you, this is why I made you. The kid that loves to dance, that's just got that rhythm, and some of us are so jealous of it. And they can look at the TV and without a lesson, without any practice, reproduce the exact same moves. Like, you're looking like, what? So I love using my kids for example. Mikhail, the baby boy, and it's interesting that we talk about those drums that I mentioned initially. He has been playing the drums since he was 6 years old, never had a lesson. He played for our church before he could even get up on the drums good. We had to sit and prop him up there. But it was a gift. And he is looking at going into music education now. Um,
Oh, that's cool.
that innate gift, that potential was already there. But we have to take the time to express it. And it's practical. It's not something mystical or deep. Look at what it is that you have in your own personal repertoire. What is that thing in you that comes naturally? Speaking, drawing, singing, dancing, math, or some people just have an affinity for numbers.
Yeah.
Some people are just writers. I know little girls who have tons of journals that they've gone through since they were 10 years old and started
Mhm.
writing. There's an author right there somewhere.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um, and so when we understand that potential is not some mystical thing, it is that innate thing. It is those innate skills. It is those gifts that come naturally to us that we have the responsibility to express in practical ways. It don't have to be, everybody won't be a Beyonce, but that doesn't mean you're not called to be an entertainer or
That's
singer.
correct. That's
But
right.
you have to express your potential in the practical and realistic way that you can express it and move on. And then lastly, purpose, that's our intent, our why. Potential, that's our innate, our how. But all of that comes together to create or to produce productivity. Purpose and potential come together to create productivity.
Mm,
We take that
love that.
why, we take that how to create the what. So now I have to say, okay, I think this is why I'm here. I think God gave me a voice because I need to say something. And this getting up in front of people and talking, I've been doing that since I was 10 years old. Sunday school, the Easter poem, that Easter speech that you hated learning. And I had a godmother who was a drill master when it came to Easter programs. And we
I
would
think we
have to,
all did.
right, and we would have to stand up there and you've got to enunciate and you've got to pronunciate. And she would make us do it over and over again. And you would just be ready to slap, cuss her out. But now I am so grateful. But now I am so grateful that she helped me to hone that potential. And I didn't even know she was doing it. She knew what she was doing, just like most of our mentors and teachers do when they say, Justin, we see the leader in you, and they challenge you or they tell you you can do more or you can be more. They see something beyond what we can see. But productivity enacted pivotally. The pep talk is, it starts with an act. It starts at some point, you got to stop dreaming and you got to take the first step. You got
Come
to
on.
do something,
That's
even if
right.
it's the smallest step. Um, I have been doing business as the Grace firm for almost 15 years. But when I stepped away from the job in May, I finally started the paperwork. And now the Grace firm is an LLC. And I've got an
Congrats.
official EIN number and all that good stuff. And I'm official. So, but and to someone, that's no biggie, that's no big deal. But to somebody who for years had just let that be a dream, it was just that thing that was out there. And finally I said, take the first step, get online,
Yes.
find out what you got to, where's the application? And then as you begin to take the step, God and the universe come behind you. That force, that Holy Ghost, and whatever force you believe, that momentum gets behind you when you make the first step. The African
Mm,
proverb says, "The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step." And I don't know where I am on that step of that journey of 1,000. I may be on 30 or I may be on 122, but wherever I am, you gotta just keep moving forward. You gotta take something that you see as maybe not so important and produce something with it. Your podcast is productivity enacted.
amen. It is. So here's what I want to take everything that you've said and I want to apply it to my challenge for people as we're ending 2023, moving into 2024. Purpose, potential, productivity. You can start all of that now.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
there is nothing that is stopping you. So, coach, if you're trying to launch your program or launch your practice, what practical steps can you take
Hmm.
right now to start getting it out there? Maybe it's your social media. Maybe it is, getting a friend to review your notes and to just pioneer your program. Author, if you have that book idea, or even if you don't have a book idea, but you have journals or blogs or things that you're always talking about,
Yes,
practical. Um, college student who you don't know what you want to do, think about your passions. Think about
yes,
the things that you love. Practical, 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 practical. And I want to also say this: it doesn't matter how many people tell you no. It does not matter how many closed doors or
it
locked
just
doors
takes
you come
one
up
yes.
against. It only takes one yes. And sometimes you have to have the courage to take your practical steps, your purpose and your potential and your productivity, you inject some pride into all of that stuff, and you say, if
Yeah.
nobody's going to open a door for me, I'm going to build my own door.
Right.
And you walk through it. Y'all, we live in a time now where literally anything is possible for you when you believe in what you are called to do. And I think that
Yes.
everything that Mr. Morris has been saying in this episode is geared toward helping you, leaders, to lead yourselves well and to start now in 2023, preparing, setting the table for an amazing 2024. Um,
Absolutely.
so here's I like to end every podcast, Mr. Morris, because you people are going to have to listen to this podcast multiple times to catch everything that you've said to us. Okay, so the way that we love to close out every episode is I like to give my guest an opportunity to give a pep talk directly to the audience for the listenership. And I know that you've just given us a lot over the course of this conversation. It's been really, really noteworthy. But did you save anything that you can give us a pep talk to close the episode out, Mr. Morris?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we move into 2024, I just want to encourage every listener three things. The first and most important thing is understand you are a gift. Who who you were created to be, regardless of where you come from, regardless of the obstacles, challenges you may have experienced in your life, you are a gift. But not only are you a gift, number two, you have gifts. Understanding that we are the gift empowers us, gives us the self confidence, the self efficacy to push forward in the usage and in the practical expression, as we talked about earlier, of our gifts. You are a gift, never forget that. But also understand that you have been given gifts and you have a responsibility, first to yourself, but then to the world that needs what you came into this dimension to offer. Lastly, not only are you a gift, not only do you have gifts, but I want to encourage you that the moment you step out in faith, the moment you believe in yourself, and you start utilizing those gifts, I can guarantee you that somebody pretty powerful said that your gifts will make room for you.
Mm-hmm.
Your gifts will create opportunities for you. Don't worry about where those opportunities are going to come from or who will be the source of those opportunities. Don't worry about any of that. Just understand that you are a gift, that you have gifts, and that if you take the time to develop those gifts and have the courage, the self with all to share those gifts with the world, I'm telling you, those gifts are going to make room for you. Those gifts are going to show up in your life, create opportunities, open doors. And like Justin said earlier, if the right door doesn't open, you're going to create a room for yourself and let the rest be history. Thank you so much, Justin, for this time. I look forward maybe to someday, some point in time later, coming back and talking and sharing more with you. So honored to be here with you and to share. And hopefully, we share something that's going to bless and encourage your listener.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh, Again, that pep talk was just, gosh, y'all, Pep Squad, I'm going to need y'all just to reach out to me on social media at underscore JB Speaks. Send me an email at thepeppodcast@gmail.com to let me know how much you've enjoyed this episode. But also, Mr. Morris, will you tell the people how they can get in touch with you, follow you on social media, any of that if they want to reach out to you?
Absolutely. My Instagram handle is Tommy Talk Global. And my email address is tommytalkglobal@icloud.com. If you email me, reach out to me, I will certainly respond. I am open and available to come and share, to keynote, to train and do workshops. We do some of it all. But Tommy, Tommy, talk, TALK, global, GLOBAL, at iCloud.com, Tommy Talk Global Instagram handle.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for honoring not just me, but uh, our audience, our listeners, by coming on to this episode and just really, really blessing us, man. Uh, and so I know that the Grace Firm is going to be great. The work that you've been doing
Thank
is
you.
going to be enhanced now that you have taken that step and you're betting on yourself and you're fully walking in that calling and in that belief. And so I'm excited for what's going to come next for you. And again, I would be remiss if I did not thank you for the impact that you had on the Jim Hill class of 1998 when we had you in 1997 during our junior year. Uh, but also personally, again, uh, for the impact that you've had on me. You were a reason why I almost thought about majoring in psychology. And in my across my adult life, a lot of times there have been a lot of times where I thought about things that we learned in that psychology class. I thought about things that I've heard you say, and it's been kind of like a lodestone for me. And so even because I enjoy speaking and this podcast coming out of it, a part of that is because of the first time I heard you speak and just those subsequent interactions that we had during that junior year. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I firmly believe in giving flowers while people's noses are alive to smell them. So I'm giving you
Absolutely.
I'm giving you all the flowers and I'm telling
Thank you
you
so much.
all of the thank yous. And so, Pep Squad, we will be right back to wrap up this episode. This is episode 16 of the Pep Talk podcast with your boy, Coach Jay and Mr. Tommy Morris. We will be right back. Man, what a dynamic conversation we just had. And I can't thank Mr. Morris enough for everything that he's brought to this episode of the podcast. And I hope that you took down his information. He's available for leadership consultations, for seminars, master classes, whatever it is that you need. His work with the Grace Firm, what he's doing, what he's starting, what he's pioneering, I know that it can help all of my leaders, established and new alike. And so reach out to him, hit him up on his social medias, and let him know that you appreciate it. Hearing him on this episode of the Pep Talk podcast. Listen, your purpose and your potential are supposed to lead to production, not just for you, but to everybody around you. A rising tide lifts all ships. And with the 3 weeks we have left in this year, that's more than enough time for you to discover your purpose, to put your potential into practice using practical means, and then to see productivity enhance and come of that so that when 2024 hits, you're off to the races. I'm challenging you every week leading into the end of this year to elevate now. Do the work now so that you're starting the year at a sprint and not at a full stop. I believe in you. I want to see you elevate. Let me know what you think about this episode. Hit us up at _JB Speaks on Instagram or uh, the pep podcast at gmail.com. Just hit us up. We want to hear from you. Join our Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. And y'all, I will see you next week. It's been a great episode. But remember, as we always close these episodes out, keep it love, keep it light, and keep it peppy. Oh, also, and tell your friends, share this episode, like, follow, all that stuff. Love y'all. See you next week. Y'all be blessed. Peace.